The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. We will be getting started in just a few minutes. We just want to give a couple more people the chance to join. Good morning, everyone. We are just giving a couple more individuals the chance to join. We should start in about 2 minutes. Thank you. Okay, everyone. We are sitting at about 5 minutes after the hour, so we're going to go ahead and get started. This webinar will be recorded, so for those who join late or for those who may not have an opportunity to view the whole thing, we will have a recording available after. My name is Lara Horsky, and I am the Director of Customer Support here at GroundWork, and today we are going to be going over NeDi and specifically how to discover and map assets with NeDi. So for those of you who may not know what NeDi is, it's an integrated toolkit for managing infrastructure devices like routers and switches, whereas most of the components in GroundWork are designed for monitoring devices on a network, NeDi is actually designed to help administrators manage their infrastructure devices, such as detecting network topology changes, manipulating configuration of network switches and router, etc. NeDi uses a variety of discovery technologies to locate the infrastructure devices across the network, and then uses another set of technologies to probe and query those discovered devices for additional details. And then finally, it stores the discovery data in a set of dynamic databases. And then from there, administrators can use the NeDi web interface to display information about those network devices and their relationships to each other. And also, you have the capability to perform basic management tasks and be alerted to unexpected changes on the network. Some of the features of NeDi are intelligent topology awareness, MAC address mapping, the ability to auto-generate network maps and monitoring dashboards, to identify rogue and missing device, and then also extensive reporting. And we're going to kind of go through these features in today's webinar. So why use NeDi? With NeDi, you can quickly add your devices in bulk to GroundWork with network dependencies automatically detected and populated. And then after the initial import, you can schedule routine discoveries to detect rogue devices or configuration changes. For example, if somebody changes your network topology by plugging something into a switch port that you don't know about, and stands up, say, a wireless access point, that kind of thing, you can quickly find that with a NeDi discovery. Additionally, NeDi can be used for troubleshooting network traffic issues as well as asset management, and we're going to go through those as well at the end. So NeDi uses a number of ways to discover the network. The first thing is a static seed list. So if an administrator needs to manually specify one or more starting devices, they can be itemized in the seed list. And then if the seed list is not defined or it doesn't contain any entries, then NeDi attempts to locate the default gateway device for the GroundWork server and then uses that IP address as the implicit seed list. So by default, the following discovery methods are enabled for GroundWork for discovery. If needed, these discovery options can be turned off, but the level of detail from the discovery will be diminished. So by default, it's going to use Cisco Discovery Protocol, CDP. It's also going to use LLDP, which is the IEEE non-proprietary version of CDP. So those are, if you're not familiar with that, it's a discovery technology that allows layer 2 network devices to talk to each other and be aware of their neighbors. And then this also uses OUI discovery, and that is once NeDi has located a device, it's able to use SNMP to query for the ARP table entries on that device, and it will examine the ARP table for network hardware addresses that belong to some well-known networking equipment vendors, and then attempt to discontinue the discovery with those systems. And then also, again, with the route table discovery, NeDi uses SNMP to query the routing table on the discovery devices, and it keeps going through, continuing the discovery with the next hop routers that are returned until it reaches a point where it can't go any further. So we're going to go ahead and look at NeDi here. So we'll go ahead and we will log in here. And we're going to go to NeDi under Advanced in Network Discovery. And then we're going to take a look at the system. And you'll notice you just have NeDi snapshot and policy. So we're going to make a change to the nedi.conf file. And we're going to allow you to make some changes in the portal. The very first thing we're going to do is check the nedi.conf file, and you can add your SNMP community strings here. You can also change the version that it uses for SNMP, whether it's version 2 or 3. And then you can also specify some of your subnet masks. You can, in this section, you can specify SSH access. So if you want to pull down configurations from your switches and routers, you can put your SSH information in there. So it can do that. And you can set some discovery filters as well. Oh, this is all in the configuration file for NeDi. So you can kind of go through here. I'm just kind of showing that there are quite a few different options. And then there's one other thing that we're going to change in this file. We're going to look at the modules, and we are going to allow to see that system module there. And you'll see what that does. We're going to write and quit this file. And then we'll go back to NeDi. And you'll see under System, now we have a Files tab. And what this will do is allow us to click Edit. And we have the ability to go into that same nedi.conf file and make changes as we need to. It also allows us to view other files such as the seed list. So we're going to do a basic discovery here. This is just using the implicit seed list. And we're doing a verbose query. And you can see I've selected that I want to do protocol, OUI, and route. And you can see how it built those parameters. And we're just going to click execute. Now in a production environment, this can last anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes, depending on how many devices that NeDi finds, but we've kind of sped it up here a little bit. So you can see that this discovery found 29 devices, and that it used the discovery starting point as the default GroundWork server from there. And then you can see just a little bit of the information that it brought back from that discovery. And we'll go through the information here in a little bit. We're going to show the screens and how they look. Now, if you want to edit the seed list, you can edit it either command line or you can edit it in this portal now. We'll show you within the portal. So I can add entries here. So for example, I can add a single IP address. I can also add a range of IP addresses. And I can add that range in different formats. So I can also define additional community strings that are related just to the IP addresses that I'm typing in. And then I can also put in not only the community string, but I can also put in name and location. As well as putting in a contact. And what this will do is then when those records get pulled in, it will associate this information. Now, in addition to putting in IP addresses to scan, I can say IP addresses to ignore, and I can do that by putting an exclamation mark in front. And then once I've typed that out and I'm ready to save it, I can click that right button and save that file. So that the next time the discovery runs, it will use that seed list. So let's look at how to automate. Now, by default, NeDi runs 5 minutes after the hour. We can look at the cron tab entry for NeDi, and we can see that it runs 5 minutes after the hour from 1 in the morning until 11 p.m. So we can change that if we would like. So in some environments, that might be too often. So we can edit that and say, you know, For example, I only want to run it at 2:15 in the morning. And I can save that. And then now it's only going to run at 2:15 in the morning every day. Let's take a quick look at what that discovery pulled in. So we'll click on devices and lists. Now a device is anything that is network related. So if you click on the little light preservers there on any of the screens, it will give you a help menu. You also have print options as well as exporting to Excel. So you can see that this particular screen sorts by vendor and by type. And if I want, I can select one of the vendors there. So I've selected HP, and I can go into this particular switch, and I can see all of the information for this switch, everything that's come back. I can see the graphs that have come in. I can see my node map, my neighbor map, and I can see everything that's attached to that switch. I also have the ability to look at interfaces. So I can see if I wanted to look by interface type, I can do that. I can look at all the VLANs that have come in. And I can look at the status of each device as it stands on the network. I can also do the config. So if I have enabled my SSH configuration into devices, I can pull their configuration, and then I can see which ones have not had changes. I can do backups, I can do last change, etc. I can also graph particular devices, so I can select a device from the list. And now these are the graphs that show up throughout NeDi, but I can specifically say which graphs I want to see. So if I wanted to stack graphs on top of each other, I can. So I'm looking for troubleshooting, things like that. In addition to devices, we can look at topology, and we can look at the topology table. And this is all auto-generated. So I can click in California, and it's going to give me the location information that it pulled in from the discovery. So I can pick on another switch there. I can also look at it in a map view. So again, it's giving me the map of all of the locations. I can then drill in to seeing that specific location all the way down. And we'll go ahead and pick on that same switch. You see that it takes me back down to that same area. I can look at the node maps, etc. I can also see routes. So if I have a specific IP address and I want to see where it maps to, I can click route and see how it's the next hop, etc. And I can click networks to see all my different networks. I can click node list. Now a node is anything that is attached to the network devices. So all your servers, printers, etc. So I can click in here. Now one thing I haven't showed you is that you can search at the top. So right now it's sorted by Dell. I can switch that to VMware. So you have the ability to change your filters at the top. And then I can pick on that Galatea server and see more information on it. I can also, just like I did on the others, click on the status. Now we'll go ahead and look at how we import into GroundWork. So we went up to auto discovery and then automation, and we create a NeDi host import profile, and we're just going to select host import and NeDi host import. We'll click add. And you can see when we click this view button in the middle of the screen there. We're going to see the output of the file. So this is the NeDi discovery file that just got pulled in. And you can see there are different columns that you can match on. If you're familiar, if you've used the GroundWork import using auto discovery, this should look familiar. And then we can click process records. And at this point, we can scroll through the list. And we can see that there are some devices that have, you'll see some of them have highlight options like host groups and parents. So those are pulling in the host group and parent from the discovery. So we can just pick on one of those. We'll pick on Triton here. And when we click on edit, we have the ability as well to define service profiles, parents, groups, etc. Or we can leave it as is. We're just going to go ahead and leave it as is, and we'll pick a few here that we know have some dependencies that are pulled in. And then we're going to scroll up and we're going to click process records. Now, anything you don't select will still be in there the next time you go back. So if you wanted to do them all, you can check them all. If you want to do just a subset, you can do a subset. So let's go to configuration hosts and we'll see if those hosts imported into GroundWork successfully. We'll go to hosts and we will start off by looking at the unassigned, and we'll find that Triton server because we know that it did not have a host group assigned. We can click on detail, but it should have a parent. We can click parents, and sure enough, it did pull in that SF2 switch 2. Now we know that a couple of the other servers had host groups. So we'll click on, for instance, that Terra one. We'll click on detail. And there's two things that it pulled in. It pulled in host groups. It also pulled in services. So we can see that it pulled in Linux, and then it also pulled in those 3 services well automatically. We can go to configuration control and just do our normal pre-flight and commit. So that it will commit those changes. And then from here, you always want to make sure, obviously, there's no errors. We can go to the status viewer, and we can see in that host, not in any host group, that we do have that Triton server in there, and it's ready to go. Let's go ahead and go back to NeDi, and we'll go through some of the other options that are available. So the first option that I want to show you is assets. So by default, when NeDi runs, it's going to pull in anything that's Cisco. It will pull in all of the asset information that it can find on the device. And it will pull it into this assets table. And at that point, you can sort this table. You can also add columns. For example, I can add in the warranty end date and click show and see that I have new, so I can see which devices are scheduled for warranty end. If there are devices that didn't get added automatically, I can add them manually here. So I can do a new, or I can update existing records. I can also choose to import. So if I have an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV file, I can import that data in here. And then you can see just some of the default categories that it puts things in on this screen, so that you can use this for asset tracking. Now, the other thing that you can use NeDi for, as we mentioned at the beginning, is you can use it for traffic troubleshooting and visualization. So this requires that you enable flow and some other pieces of NeDi to be able to do this, like nfdump. But you can see your environment. So you can see what source addresses are talking to destinations, on what port, etc. You can always go back by clicking on the little icon there. You can also change this to a sand key graph to show it in a different format. Now this does require additional storage when you do this, when you enable flow. So because you are storing a lot more data on the GroundWork server. So just keep that in mind when you're doing that. We also have reports built into NeDi. So you can do things like type distribution, class, software distribution, and then we can click show. And this is going to show our devices by vendor, by type. If we scroll down, it's going to show it by class of service or class of device. So whether it's an layer 3 or layer 2 or firewall. You can see the operating system. So if you have a patch that needs to be applied to a certain operating system, you can do that, or even to the boot image level. We can also do a report of all the modules that are connected. So you can do an inventory and a distribution. In addition to servers, if you wanted to monitor printers and say print supplies, things like that, you can do that within NeDi as well. We can look at our network distribution and network population. And as we scroll down here, you'll see that as you hover over these, it's going to actually tell you the nodes that are attached to it. And so the green items are all nodes. All of the blues are devices in the environment that it found. And then we can do it as well by nodes. So again, we can do distributions to show how they're distributed across the environment, etc. We can also look at, say, uptime statistics. So quite a few different reporting options within NeDi. One of the other things that you can do with NeDi that we didn't show is you can do with Flow, you can enable events to come out of NeDi. So if you wanted to look at a specific flow, and if it went over a set threshold to generate an alarm into GroundWork, you can do that. So this is, in a nutshell, this is the beginning for NeDi. We hope that you have found this presentation interesting and you start using NeDi in your environment. If you have any questions, if you could please send ask them in the question window. Can you please bring down the switch or router configuration? Give me one moment, Hans. We had one question to please bring down the switch or router configuration. Let me get back on that. So you're talking about this, Hans, where you go to devices and configuration? Do we have any other questions at this time? Amaz, can you type your question? Or let's see if I can unmute you. Okay, if you can speak your question.
Sorry, this was my mistake, but I was wondering if you guys have support for Office 365 to monitor Office 365.
We are working on some new profiles. I don't know if that'll be included in it. The problem is that Office 365 has changed over the last couple of years, so we just need to make sure that what we're checking as far as the API level matches what they currently have.
Any expectation or time around when this is gonna be ready? Like,
I'd have to check with engineering. I know that we are building an Azure connector, and I would hope that that API would then help us more with Office 365 because it would their Office 365 should cooperate similar to the Azure connector provided by Microsoft. But I can check with engineering and get back to you on that question.
okay, thank you.
Yes. Any other questions at this time? I had a question about, does this cost extra? No, this is actually included in the GroundWork product. So this is fully supported, fully integrated into GroundWork. It's included in your device license. So this is the only thing that I would stress with running NeDi is you do want to make sure when you are running it, especially in a production environment, that you keep an eye on any intrusion detection systems that you may have enabled in your network, just so that you don't trip that, because it is an extensive, as we went through at the beginning, it does do an extensive discovery. So that's the only caveat that I would put with NeDi. It's a powerful tool, and really I would hope that all of our customers would use it. But that's one thing that we do want to stress, is that you do need to run it with caution when you are running in a secured environment. Okay. Question came up of which version of GroundWork is required to have NeDi. NeDi's actually been in the product for quite some time, but it is optimized with 7.2. We have later version of NeDi, and I believe with 7.2.1, we will be putting even the absolute latest version of NeDi into. But it has been in the product for quite some time. It hasn't been used as much as we would like, and I think that was mainly because we haven't really pushed for customers to use it before now, and we realized that, and we wanted to make sure customers were aware of what a great tool it is and how it can be used. Any other questions? Yes, SNMP version 3 is supported in NeDi. You can, that's customizable in the nedi.conf file. And in 7.2.1, we will include a NeDi connector for further assist in automated discovery and monitoring as well. Okay, if there's no further questions, we'll go ahead and conclude today's webinar. And again, if you have additional questions, feel free to open them in cases on our support site. And thank you for your time.